Good morning, everybody. Could everybody have their seats? I apologize for being late, folks. Welcome to the May 29th Regional Planning Committee meeting. Before I move forward, I would like to ask our interpreter how to access interpretation.
Good morning. Our announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días. Avisa por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en esta reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
First, I will ask our clerk, Michael Garcia, to confirm that we have a quorum for the meeting. I know Council President Pro Tem Kent Lee is participating online.
Yes, that's correct, Chair. We do have a quorum with North County Inland absent. Council President Kent Lee, representing City of San Diego, is participating via teleconference under Government Code 54953 due to childcare. Council President Pro Tem Lee, he's online. Please confirm your camera will remain on for the duration of the meeting.
Yes, I will.
Please confirm if there are any individuals 18 years or older in the room with you. If so, please state the general nature of the relationship.
There is no one 18 years or older in the room with me.
Thank you. Chair Downey, this participation qualifies as a just cause under the Brown Act, and as a reminder, all votes must be taken via roll call.
Thank you. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically forced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and the original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, the Diakhe-Nile, the Lucia Sanyo, the Kupenyo, and the Kuya. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. I will now call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. On item number 1, non-agenda public and member comments. For our board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal public comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. Based on these factors, for today's meeting, each member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes for their comments. Francesca, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak?
We do have members of the public who'd like to speak, Chair. We have 2 in person and we have 2 online. First is Parita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier.
Good morning. We are hurt We are hurt. Oh, ikaw na nga. We are hurt and live in fear from poison gas and breathe from next home business since 1997 for me and 2012 for my husband. We sought representation from Councilor Rivera in 2022, but there is nothing has been done to abate the hazardous business. In fact, a judge declared that policy change is the right thing to do. We are referred to APCD by the city code enforcement because of their jurisdiction in air quality. We sought help from the APCD specialists to investigate, and they said no violation because they did not smell the toxic gas. Did they come when this kiln was in operation? We offered our property for their observation. Director Forbes declared the case nuisance. That was
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Cesar Javier, followed by phone number 3731 online.
We know how to survive. Thank you, SANDAG. Thank you, Uncle Sam. It's very clear that there are conflicting rules and regulations. City, APCD, county, if only to find solution to this particular issue of policy change. I see city employees, city elected officials right here in SANDAG forming a group of thinkers to find solution, working together to find solution. It is true that this is not the jurisdiction of SANDAG because the focus here is mobility, circulation. But because of that hope and faith in the intellectual being of the members, we find hope here. And we are grateful that the chair of this particular board is our idol, a military trained to think and act. Ma'am Donnie, congratulations. We have that big hope. We have discussed lengthily about leadership. And this is now the leadership under her in action. We heard her in the council meeting in Coronado, where the city approved of joining the San Diego Power, at least to ease our pain from high cost of electricity. This is non-agenda. So it is a backshot group shots.
Thank you for your comment. Next is phone number 3731 online, followed by Blair Beekman.
Hey there, it's your city's favorite public speaker, Truth. Regarding the last regional planning meeting, Joel may be right on the idea about changing to a regional strategy for the expensive VMT mitigation demands from the state. But where he was not right, claiming that there's no jobs in Temecula, yes, there are, and Murrieta too. These areas are exploding in more than just housing. There are major grocery stores, malls, hotels, and vacation destinations open up constantly because the economy is actually doing much better than failing San Diego County, full of unnecessary government-induced inflation. And also, not everybody is commuting because remote work is a common possibility now. One would think that a county employee who helped push remote work since 2020 would remember that. On the flip side, it was nice to hear Bruce repeat the fact that bikes are almost exclusively used for recreation, not as a mode of transportation like SANDAG pretends. Rich e-bikers are taking away tax dollars and resources from transit security, fixed potholes, and safer highway infrastructure. The Environmental Mitigation Program is another unfunded state scam to enable jurisdictions to waste local tax dollars to land grab public property from tangible uses. The con Keith Greer could not see or seem to understand is having the state or the feds pay for our lands is that they would then own them. Again, that is a major negative omission by SANDAG. Overall, the 8-minute late Regional Planning Committee is one of those frivolous SANDAG committees that has yet to justify its taxpayer-funded existence. Is a committee of 6 trying to make wide-ranging plans for the entire so-called region, or to assist cities in their individual plans for their unique residents? Or is regional planning to just find a way to implement pervert Scott Wiener's destructive, high-density, stack-and-pack housing bills nobody anywhere wants? What part of regional planning reaches out to the public it's allegedly supposed to serve versus reaching out to the professional paid urban planners with a personal political agenda? I believe in the American right to self-determination, not foreign UN-based tyranny. Thanks.
Our last public comment is Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for the meeting today. It's good that you guys are meeting. Thank you. I wanted to comment that, it's been kind of a tough few weeks here in San Diego with the shooting incidents. And I'm trying to learn how to understand it. I'm from San Jose, and we had 2 mass shootings in the past 10 years. And it was a lot to work through. And but it was always helpful that there was, government would still be continuing to practice, our local city governments and county governments. And that was always in a way reassuring because we can be able to talk about and work on our best things in doing that. But mass killings just have a way to just really take apart a lot of good things that are trying to be worked on and built. And I think in San Diego right now, we're trying to learn how to move through that still and still continue to work on our best selves, our best practices. And I learned the concept, of giving hugs at this time, towards our best practices. It can help really, give a lot of love to what the pain that's been caused at this time. It's with that there's going to be a lot of asks for new technology, surveillance tech. The issues with the SDPD and the ALPR use, I'm sure you kind of know that story at this time. It's my feeling that we need to develop better communications with the technology we already have in place, rather than asking for more and more technology. It's learning the concepts of better human communication at this time and how we relate to each other about issues. And that means talking about different things, but good luck how we do that before technology. Thank you.
That concludes our non-agenda public comment, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the committee members? Laura?
Yes, thank you. I had 2 comments or questions that East County staff wanted me to ask. The first one, would SANDAG consider bringing forward an informational item on how it's using AI in regional planning? It was covered heavily at the APA conference that a lot of them went to, and so they wanted to understand what SANDAG was doing or plans to do. And then the biggest one was on SB 79, the last update, they received covered pedestrian points of access, but they haven't seen the adopted map. With the law effective July 1st, how close is the TOD stop map to finalization, and when can cities expect to see it?
Chair, I can tackle both of those. So thank you for the comments. We can certainly, I think, look into when it would be appropriate to bring back a conversation about AI and regional planning and how that could be used. And then in terms of the mapping for SB 79, we're still working on it. And so I don't have an update in terms of a date, but as soon as we do, we'll be happy to share it with everyone.
I guess my follow-up is, will we meet the July 1st deadline or no?
We're still working on it. We're working as hard as we can try and get something out to you as soon as possible.
Did any other members have a public comment at this time? Seeing none, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Michael, do we have any public comments?
If you're online and want to comment on consent agenda, please raise your hand now. We have one in person right now, Chair, and that's Cesar Javier.
Michael, could you hold
sorry.
on, Cesar, could you hold on 1 second? Somehow I skipped Tuer's SANDAG update.
Sorry, I'll try and be very brief so that way he doesn't have to wait long. But Mario and Antoinette unfortunately can't be here today, so I'm here to give your agency updates. Again, Tuere Faola, Deputy Director for Regional Planning. I just want to start off with acknowledging that the board recently, earlier this month, unanimously approved our fiscal year 2027 budget. So a thank you to all of our staff, as well as the members of our board who all contributed towards making that happen. There were also several recent trips that were taken by Mario. Recently, he's been traveling to Sacramento as well as Washington, D.C. And in D.C., he's been continuing conversations on the surface transportation bill, and we'll continue to bring you updates on that. And in Sacramento, he's been advocating for funding as well as our priority projects, as well as SB 375 reform. Funding, it's mentioned, is not going to be a very easy conversation. And I think that's something that we continue to hear over this year or for years to come. The governor's May revise was also recently released. We're not expecting any increases. We have concerns around the cap and investment funding, and we may not receive full funding that we previously relied upon from state programs like the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities. So very timely for that discussion that we have today, as well as for transit and intercity rail capital program. Also an update that our TCA agreement, the Trade Corridors Agency, has officially been signed. And so we're working towards a transition for about a year from now. In terms of project updates, I just mentioned about SB 375 and the advocacy that's been happening. We're continuing to work with our Big Four partner agencies, MPOs across the state. This is Senate Bill 1087. And so this did pass out of the state Senate Transportation and Environmental Committee. And again, just a reminder, some of the key changes that are included in that bill is extending the time between when we do a sustainable community strategy from every 4 years to every 8 years. This would require us to still do a technical update on our regional transportation plan every 4 years to maintain compliance with the federal government. And we're also looking to that bill to help us with streamlining how we work with the California Air Resources Board to improve our transparency and reduce the significant amount of time that it takes us in coordinating with them and the money that's spent on doing technical modeling. In terms of our transit fare study, you may have heard that we have 2 public meetings that are upcoming. One is going to be here on June 9th in our boardroom at noon, and the other one is in North County at San Marcos City Hall at 6 p.m. So this is an opportunity for the public or for you to come and learn more about the fare changes, share some of your feedback, and so we encourage you or others in the public to attend. And then also in North County, just to talk a little bit about the I-5 and State Route 78. Interchange improvements. This is a SANDAG Caltrans joint project to improve traffic safety as well as flow. And they have kicked off the CEQA process, so the California Environmental Quality Act, and public comment can be provided on the initial comment period on the proposed project and all of the potential environmental impacts that are being studied. And they're accepting feedback on the EIR through June 13th. 2026, and it's a 45-day public comment period. We've also kicked off our State Route 94 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. We've had some outreach recently on that and collecting feedback to understand the needs of the users and those who live near State Route 94. The study is looking from downtown San Diego all the way out to Jamul. And so they currently have a survey that's open and closes on May 31st, so this coming Sunday. And they're looking for things for people to identify transportation needs, challenges, and opportunities along that corridor. And then just last thing, and I'll turn it back over to the chair, just a big congratulations and a thank you to everyone who participated. We had a very successful Bike Anywhere Day. We had more than 11,000 pit stop visits, and this is a 13% increase from last year. This is the highest participation that we've had since COVID. So again, a big thank you to all of the staff and for all of your cities who helped participate and those who were a part of that day. So that's all of our agency comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, let's try once again. Michael, do we have any comments on the consent agenda?
We do. We have 1 in person and 2 online. Cesar Javier in person, followed by Blair Beekman online. Please state the consent agenda item you are speaking to.
Community outreach. That's what benefits us from these minutes. Thank you, SANDAG. Yesterday was a reflection, a trajectory, rate of change is slow to moderate as far as our mission. A number of critical discussions faded, however, such as community sustainability, more importantly, the Tijuana River Valley pollution crisis. We are missing, critically too, preparation in times of crisis, catastrophe, preventing fatalities, human lives, primarily. We miss also some effort to look at health and public safety, which is the core element in urban planning, man-focused, man-certain or centered with the other elements. Most glaringly, or starring in terms of Hollywood movies, is the soft approach, algorithm, and how do you say that? Supervision and control. And perhaps this would justify continuing amendments as we implement programs and projects, such as at item 3.2. They were good, but they were...
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Blair Beekman online, followed by Truth.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Again, with this item, smart growth issues and specifically the work with Oceanside with SANDAG smart growth issues. Good luck in just being on the technology that will be used for our smart growth projects. I've noticed in SANDAG meetings you have a tendency to be a little broad about the use of the term smart growth. And this is item 3.2, I guess, by the way, that in talking about your smart growth, you have a tendency to not discuss the technology involved. And the whole point of the name is smart growth, is how to build a smart city future, which is, technology. What is our relationship with technology? And that relationship has to be one of, what is being totally re-emphasized to me this week is the importance of human communication and dialogue and what we share in those terms with each other before the technology itself. The technology is tools for our better human communication. And the technology often becomes an end to itself. And that's the sad part of our lives, basically. So I think it's really important that we have good policies in place with our tech and that it's open and clear and participatory with the public. It's not just for your own selves, it's for everybody to understand our future of use of tech in our projects and practices. And that we just have a real open, clear understanding and working together and good communication. And good luck how we work towards those goals. Responsible practices, not secretive national security mandates that we have to keep hidden from everyone. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Truth.
Hey there, I actually want to hear everywhere SANDAG is using AI. And about not hearing things, how are people supposed to hear about the fare transit increase meetings other than on the SANDAG website? Because that's the only way I found it. And where did the corrupt county spend over $367,000? Because there appears to be no changes in Spring Valley, Lakeside, Buena Creek, and especially not in Case de Oro, as SANDAG staff have written it in this agenda item. Because last I checked, it was Casa de Oro. Maybe you guys should actually head out to East County, you'd know. I don't think the county should receive any more tax dollars, as they have proven they do not respect the privilege nor the constituents they're supposed to serve. The $650,000 HAP program for Imperial Beach started out as an anti-car, anti-people nightmare, but the city demanded better. It's getting there, but the new shiny slime green paint is a real eyesore. Nobody starts their journey from busy Palm Avenue. The rich bikers drive their cars from San Diego to the Bikeway Village and then pull out their $10,000 e-bikes and shorty shorts to bike dangerously fast near local pedestrians. The $1 million stack of packs to block Bay View's idea is also stupid. This is what happens when non-local urban planner indoctrination inductees are paid to perpetuate rather than think. However, consultants at City Thinkers have been forced to think outside their university box, resulting in some decent ideas like giving 13th Street some overdue character. To me, that's proof that anything left up to SANDAG or the City of San Diego is unrepresentative of what communities actually want and need. Hence the never-ending, unaffordable stack-and-pack density going on in the mid-city area rather than the pothole repairs and violent crime reduction they actually need. And for the record, there are never children riding in San Diego's uphill bike lanes in downtown, as shown on slide 3. You're more likely to see drug addicts use bike lanes as encampment lanes. The $1 million plus a mile of slime green paint is equally ugly in the city of El Cajon. Remember, green is the new red. Thank you.
That concludes our public comment on consent agenda, Chair.
Thank you. Do any members have comments on the consent agenda? Nope. May I have a motion to recommend the consent agenda? Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Do I have a second? Thank you very much, Mayor Arrows. If I understand correctly, we have to do a hand vote or voice vote?
That's correct. So while you're pressing your button, just go ahead and say aye, nay, or abstain. So as I go through the list here. City of San Diego, Kent Lee? You're muted, sir. County of San Diego, Supervisor Anderson?
Oh, wait, could you wait for a second? Kent was trying to talk to us. Can we just have him raise his hand if we can't get his voice going?
All right. My window like moved in a weird way. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson, County of San Diego?
Aye.
Aye. South County, Chair Downey?
Aye.
East County, Councilmember Koval?
Aye.
North County Coastal, Mayor Ehlers?
Aye.
And North County Inland is absent. That passes unanimously with those members present.
Did we get everybody who we missing?
If you could also press your button, Mayor Ehlers.
You can.
Excuse me?
If you could also press your button, your remote.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought we were doing a voice vote.
I did too.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to reports. Item number 4, funding for housing in the San Diego region. I'll pass it over to Air to kick off the item and look forward to a robust discussion between us and the presenters.
Thank you, Chair and Regional Planning Committee members. Yes, we are looking forward and think that this is going to be a very important topic and one that has been brought up quite frequently. So we know that a lot of you care very deeply about housing and you want to see your cities be part of the solution that are bringing more housing to our region. We also recognize that there have been hundreds of housing legislation that has come over in the last few years that your staff are working really hard at implementing and being compliant with, in addition to fulfilling the requirements that the RENA 6 cycle brought with your housing elements and being able to provide over 171,000 units for our region. So we have brought together today a diverse panel of people who are representing perspectives that touch on all levels from local, regional, state, as well as federal, to have an open and honest conversation with each other on what has worked well, what hasn't worked, what has changed, what tools are in our toolbox, or even things that have been removed. We've often heard this group and our board talk about the redevelopment agency funding no longer being available, and what opportunities might still be available from local, state, or federal perspective. So we have here today with us Stacy, who you all probably know very well, who's going to be giving an overview of our REAP program and the benefits that we gained through that and the funding to advance your housing elements implementation, and how we're making progress on RENA. I believe Isaac is going to start things off and is going to bring a local perspective from San Marcos, some of the successes that they've had in delivering housing and partnering to be able to bring forth housing either through former redevelopment or even some more recent examples. We also have Bill Higgins here from CalCog, who is going to be giving an overview of what's happening at the state as it relates to housing, existing and future funding opportunities that might be available for us to take advantage of here in our region. And then Ryan is going to round us out and talk about the federal landscape and a bipartisan housing legislation that's proposed. Unfortunately, Danielle Coachman was going to be here and talk about some very local tools that could be used. She fell ill this morning, but you do have her slides in her packet, and we're happy for anyone who has interest in talking about some of that more to connect with you offline. So we're hoping that today's discussion gives us all an opportunity to learn from each other, the experiences, and strategize on how we can bring more funding into our region and to support housing development. And I'm going to turn it over to the team, but just as a reminder to our committee members, we do want this to be a dialogue. We want you to feel free to stop them, ask questions, ask for clarifying information, because we want to make sure that this is a learning opportunity for everyone. So I'll turn it over to the team.
Thank you very much. My name is Isaac Etchemendy. I'm the Director of Development Services with the City of San Marcos. I wanted to walk you through a little bit of some of our successes in the past. That is not talking to the future, but really what got us to where we are. We have a great number of affordable housing units. We have over 3,400 of them that are deed restricted. That's something we're very proud of. It's something that was due and made possible through RDA. The majority of our units, 2,700 of them, were funded through RDA. And so when we were growing up as a city, we were really able to leverage RDA to build the affordable projects that we have. Those affordable units are reflected in over 34 developments. So we have a diverse range of units and types. It's something that has allowed us to kind of move forward and just have this 10% of our housing stock currently that is tied up in deed restricted units. Moving forward, we continue to see growth, and we've continued to be able to have some success with some of the funding that's left over from RDA to continue to fund affordable housing. But one of the things that we've continued to struggle, and I'm sure many local agencies have continued to struggle with, is what does the future look like? Where are we going to get this type of funding to really continue to invest in affordable housing? Market rate is still coming forward, at least to San Marcos, and we're able to manage that. And we've made really good inroads to our arena numbers, but as we look to that future, really understanding where we have some strong ways to fund housing, like we had in the RDA days, is something we're struggling with. So with that, I'll turn it over, and I think we can continue the discussion. That's been our success, or I can turn it over if anyone has any questions before we move over. But it's really been how we've been able to be successful. And we're really proud of that, but we really would like to find ways to figure out how to continue to be successful.
Does anyone have any questions for Isaac before I move on to the REAP program?
You know what I do, if I could. Out of that 3,400, did you say? 3,400 new housing. What was the size of the developments? Were they, because that just blows my mind because we have nowhere. I'd take up almost my entire town to add that many houses. So how many per development project?
It ranges wildly. We have developments that are below 100 units. We have some that are several hundred. We have one that's coming online here shortly that'll just be a bit over 200 units.
Wow.
In one of our higher density areas. So we really have a wide variety of unit types. And of course, like many agencies, we also have some of this tied up in our mobile home communities that are restricted as well. So we have that type of housing as well.
And how tall is your tallest development? How many stories?
We just opened a 12-story building, and that is a market rate apartment building.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
So,
Yes, Mayor.
so a couple of questions. First, what kind of findings did you have to make back when you got the RDA funding? I know in the case of Encinitas back in 2005, we had to consider whether or not we could declare a neighborhood blighted. Is that type of finding you had to make?
Yes, we did have to do that. We formed our RDA back in 1983. And so the regulations changed years after. So we were able to make those determinations, and we had a fairly extensive redevelopment area in the city.
So then when it ended in 2012, February of 2012, what have you had projects since then under RDA that you are continuing with? In other words, did you lock in funds at that time and you've been able to play those out as recently as this year? Or?
Absolutely. So those RDA funds really have kept us afloat. The waterfall funding we've had through ROPS is continuing to help finance some continuing units, which is great. But that is coming to an end. We see the future.
I was going to say
soon.
How long do you get to go? I mean, there's no it's until you run out of funds, basically, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Please.
I hate to play one-upmanship, but I know you were talking about what you say 3,400 units in our city. Over 18% of all of our housing units are Section 8 alone. Plus, then you got to talk about all the affordable and low-income housing on top of that. And one of our newest projects that just got built under the state guidelines. And so it was separate from the city. We had no oversight over it. And so it's right next to City Hall. Nice big multiple story low income housing. And we had to have an event coming up to where we had to have all the cars off the street because of an event in the park. And so we had it blocked. Well, when we showed up for the event, there was all the cars in the apartments were there. So our police department didn't want to tow them. So they looked up their registration. So they go knock on their doors. They hadn't changed their registration yet.
Oh,
they
no.
were all from Vista and San Marcos. So we were providing low income housing for North County. In addition, so that's another problem that comes up.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have one more. Did you do everything under your own current zoning, or did you use state streamlining? I mean, what did you have to do to get to the numbers you got to?
So I think this conversation there's two halves to this. There's the affordable side of it, which is really driven by providing affordable housing funding to help build some of the lower income units to get those in place. So for that really comes down to funding and working within our existing zoning laws. When it comes to just reaching general RENA numbers and just development yield, I think that is a different thing. And that comes down to trying to investigate how you can streamline. And yes, you can do that. We do look at that in San Marcos. We are fairly aggressive in how we look at how we're doing that. But also we have to be careful because we want to make sure we're keeping community character. That's something that our community desires, is something we want to make sure we're doing thoughtfully. So it's a balancing act, right? Making sure we've looked at all the things that are important to our community, and when there's a discretionary approval, and then making sure that we're moving forward appropriately, and not being, not really thinking out about how this works in the global scheme of things between affordable and overall housing development, because they really do play in together. You need kind of a balance of everything. And that's one of the things in San Marcos that we've really strived to have, is to have an opportunity for a variety of housing types. So that way people can have all of these different opportunities in the city to grow up there, evolve there, and eventually stay there and work there.
I'm trying to picture it, and I will drive up to San Marcos just so I can see this, but I didn't do it before the meeting. I'm trying to figure out if you've got 10-story units, and by the way, were those market rate or those affordable housing rate?
The 12-story building, it's right up along 78, and it is a market rate apartment building.
Okay,
So it's a for rent building.
thank you.
And isn't it near San Marcos State University?
It is. It's
Yeah.
it's actually within that. It's
okay.
within our North City development. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any other questions? Thank you very much. Our next speaker.
All right, I'm going to continue the conversation with the Regional Early Action Planning Grant Program. So SANDAG received $6.8 million in formula funding through REAP 1. We launched our Housing Acceleration Program to help facilitate compliance with implementing the 6-cycle arena. So these funds could only be used for planning activities. And then additional funding was made available as part of the 2021 California Comeback Plan. And the REAP 2.0 program built on the success of REAP 1 and expanded the program focus by addressing the state's both housing and climate goals. So the REAP 2.0 funds were allowed to be used for both planning and implementation investments, including housing supportive infrastructure. But they have to fulfill the 3 program objectives of REAP, which are up there on the screen: accelerating infill development that facilitates supply, choice, and affordability, affirmatively furthering fair housing, and reducing VMT. So in 2022, we received $40.5 million in REAP 2 funding. So a major component of our housing acceleration program is local jurisdiction support. We've held 2 call for projects. Together, we awarded over $14 million to projects that help accelerate housing development, including feasibility studies, objective design standards, ADU programs, and community and specific plan updates. And up there, you can see what jurisdictions were awarded funds through both. And cycle 2 was both capital and planning grants. We also provide support to our local cities through our technical assistance program. This program has been really well received by the cities, especially considering all the new housing laws that have come out over the past few years. We've created a number of templates and toolkits to help jurisdiction staff understand and implement state legislation. We provide local staffing assistance, which are free consulting hours, and we've supported 16 jurisdictions with 58 requests. Individual requests. We're also now providing support to the cities who will be impacted by SB 79 and helping create ordinances or work with them on their local TOD plans. We've also held over 25 webinars and trainings every year around APR due dates. We help the cities put together their APRs to submit to HCD. So you can access a lot of these tools through our housing policy and planning tool that's on our open data portal. There should be a link in your presentation. The HPPT, as we call it, contains various modules to help users understand and analyze the housing landscape in our region. One that you may find particularly interesting, as I know our chair did a few months ago when she discovered it, is the 6-cycle arena dashboard. So as Tori mentioned, HCD determined that our region needs to plan for over 171,000 units during the cycle. The dashboard allows you to view the progress for our region and by jurisdiction. Just to note, we update this annually. It currently reflects the 2024 APR data. HCD is in the process of updating their portal. So we will be updating ours in the summer. So currently it reflects 2024 data, but we will be updating that with 2025. And you can see our region's been struggling to meet its goals in every category except for above moderate. So in addition to local jurisdiction support, REAP 2.0 funding has been used to accelerate development of affordable housing through 3 other programs. We have a regional housing trust fund. We partnered with the San Diego Foundation and awarded $14 million in grants and low interest loans to 10 projects to bring 966 units of affordable housing to our region. And they will enter the market between the end of this year and in June 30. And the San Diego Foundation is administering this program. As we know, San Diego is home to more tribal nations than any other county in the U.S. So we partnered with the SCTCA, the Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association, to create a tribal housing program. And we awarded over $4.4 million to 8 tribes who had applied for the funding. And we also have a transit agency partnership. So we coordinate with MTS and NCTD on advancing transit-oriented development in our region.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
For the tribal housing, the housing, I'm assuming, was all being built on the reservation?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Either on reservation or on what do they call it? In trust land yeah.
Does that count towards our RENA numbers for the county since it's not in county land?
I don't think so, but
I
I
don't
do
think
believe
so
that there
either.
was some sort of legislation out there that you could work with the unincorporated county. I'll have to do a deeper dive and get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was something
Sorry.
that was passed in the past few
No,
years.
The county gets a RENA number.
Oh.
The tribes don't get a separate RENA number. So
Right, so it does count even
yeah.
though it's not on
Yeah.
that land? Okay, thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
And the expenditure deadline for REAP 2.0 funds is December of this year. So again, how do we sustain some of the progress we've made with the REAP funding? Granted, not that much, but not that much funding, but we've made quite a bit of progress in helping to facilitate Six Cycle Arena. I will pass it over to Bill to talk a little bit more about state efforts.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's always good to come to San Diego. And I know you hear that all the time, but it's always good to come to San Diego. My name is Bill Higgins, and I'm the Executive Director of the California Association of Councils of Governments. That's I always get a what's a CalCog, so just really quick. We represent 50 regional agencies across the state, many, including all 18 metropolitan planning organizations, but also many regional transportation planning agencies, like in the LA area. Orange County Transportation Authority is also a member. And then we have councils of governments across the state as well, like San Gabriel Valley COG. So we're kind of a mix and a mash of many units, and everybody has a slightly different angle on what their region works and how regional government works. But my board has also instructed me, and I point to one of my former presidents of the board for many years, Ron Morrison, was served. We're both long in the tooth. So that was like 2013, 2014, when he was on our board. But I think it's fair for you to ask, what do you get out of a CalCog membership? And we represent you in Sacramento. We host convenings so that you can share information. In fact, one of the things that we do extra for you and the other 3 large metropolitan planning organizations is because the 4 of you have very unique issues that are akin to a large MPO. We facilitate conversations with your executive staffs and track that and help facilitate conversations with state agency staff in Sacramento so that you can talk about the special issues that drive a large region. But the biggest thing my board has told me to tell you is that it was our idea and we delivered REAP 1 and 2. So the fact that you have 40 million and 6 million up there is directly attributable to our idea and our advocacy. So you're getting a good ROI on your dues. So that's what they wanted me to leave you with. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about a couple things that you got a good legislative update on 1087, which is the SB 375 reform bill. I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of other bills, but then I'm going to kind of take a step back and encourage you to ask questions, because that's what they told me. So I came PowerPointless today so that you would encourage you to ask questions, interrupt me at any time. I thrive on that. But I thought I would just talk about, what REAP was, what redevelopment is, and what do we need going forward. Because in the last 8 years, the legislature has adopted over 500 laws, most of which curtail local authority and discretion on housing projects or environmental review on housing projects. That's one RENA period. And I don't think that all those laws have come into effect yet, but one of the challenges that you, I think, are dealing with is how do you deal with these new mandates at the same time you actually solve the housing crisis? And we were having a conversation before. I'll just give you one example. You're supposed to provide a community for the housing, right? It's not just the new housing, but they have to have all the wraparound services, the police, the fire, the parks, and everything. And it's getting more and more difficult. Funding's tighter, and sometimes the only way to achieve that is through fees. But at the same time, the state treats a fee as a constraint on housing, and you're strongly encouraged not to do it. So you're given this, or at least cities sometimes are given this impossible task of creating a community, building more housing, and having the infrastructure necessary to serve it. And it's a challenge, and it's one that's not being discussed about a lot. Here's a more different take on it, although it's an extreme example. But I was just reading this last week. One of the challenges that we've had in the last year and a half is, of course, we had the tragic fires in the county of Los Angeles, and many homes were destroyed, thousands were destroyed, and there's an imperative to rebuild. And the state stepped up and said, we're going to streamline, even the president said, we're going to streamline building in this area, everything that we could. The state invested in an AI tool that could review permits really quickly to turn it around. And it's worked to some extent. In the first year, there's been, between the city and county, there's been 3,000 permits that were issued really fast. But how many building starts are there? 28. So to me, that suggests, okay, if permitting is a problem, okay, there is, but it's not the entire problem. And I think in Sacramento, the narrative has been, it's permitting, it's local control, it's NIMBYism. We have to stamp that out. And I would suggest that they've done it 5,000 or 500 times, and they haven't stopped to see what the change is yet. But because it hasn't changed, they're doing more and more of the thing. So that's a working theory that I have. There are two bills I'm going to just talk about right now, and then I'm going to jump back into redevelopment and REAP. But I'm going to try. Anybody want to interrupt me yet? Okay, because you're welcome to. The first bill I want to talk about is a bill that it's another idea that we came up with. One of the challenges that you have as a regional agency is you have the regional housing needs allocation every 8 years, and it's essentially an unfunded mandate to the regions. There's no money that comes with that. And collectively, our 20 councils of governments across the state that do regional, the RENA process, have they cost them about $16 million total every 18 years. Not a huge thing in the state budget, but it is an unfunded mandate. And so we're working on SCAG, your MPO to the north, the Southern California Association of Governments, is actually sponsoring, and we're a co-sponsor on AB 2002. And this bill has two parts. First, to me, the most important part is to get you, and when I say you, I mean all my 20 COG children. I love all my kids the same. You're just my favorite because of the weather. We're trying to get you funding for RENA. And so that would pay for your staff, the appeals process, all the detail. And our argument is, because when you're in Sacramento, they'll say the RENA is the cornerstone to the state housing policy. And I say, okay, prove it. Let's fund it then and make sure it's done right. Because there's not a dedicated source of funding. You guys probably pull in a little federal funding here, and you're at times you might be on the edge of of the eligibility of funds there, but you have to. It's a mandate. You have to do it. Well, not you. Some of the other MPOs. The other thing is to actually get some kind of funding, like the first REAP one, where you can in the seventh housing element cycle. You can also help fund local agencies to do those projects that are also consistent with your sustainable community strategy, the same way that the first REAP program is. Now, in this budget environment, that's going to be difficult. If you haven't heard, the state has more money than it was planning on, but when it looks long-term, there's deficits, because this year's small budget surplus is probably because there's been a lot of AI IPOs. And those are 5 letters I never thought I'd utter in the same thing 5 years ago, AI IPO, but that's a thing now. So they're being very conservative. We're probably not going to see a lot of funding. So it's hard to get that. But what we are saying is that at the very least, we need to fund the ARENA process, and that's with AB 2002. We're also talking, and we're talking about some funding ideas for you in 1087 that haven't come out yet. But one of the things that the governor has suggested in his budget proposal was, right now, one of the funds that gets used for affordable housing right now is in the Cap and Invest or Cap and Trade program called the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Fund. That's where developers and others it's been used primarily for affordable housing projects, and I think there's several in the San Diego region that have been funded near your light rail lines and other transit facilities. And the idea there is that actually one of the best investments we can make to reduce carbon from cars and light trucks is to build affordable housing on light rail and other transit, because it encourages people to get out of their cars. So it turns out it's one of the most effective strategies within SB 375 to meet the state goal in that way. So it's been done that way. The governor's proposal is to split that fund and use 70% of it directly for housing and 30% for what he calls sustainable communities. And our vision on that, or at least my personal vision, I should say, and some of it is that if you're going to split that fund that way, 70% for housing and 30% for strategic our sustainable development. Right now, the governor proposes leaving that with the Strategic Growth Council. We would argue that our programs under REAP 1 and REAP 2 make us a more likely and on-the-ground tool and partner to deliver those funds to projects. And my point to my state partners who really like to give money out on specific projects and then pat themselves on the back is that's very self-affirming for you. But what they really need to do is create local partners and to share the wealth and to empower the local folks to give them the tools and the funding to actually make the types of decisions they expect from us. And so there has to be some trust. And so that's our point of view on that. So now I'm supposed to just talk generally about what the future of redevelopment and REAP might look like. But again, I will stop and ask any questions. And this time I might wait for 5 seconds to really give you one of you a chance. You've got to have a question. Okay. I'm ready anytime. I think what I would like to do is maybe even ask you some questions to engage in a dialogue here. But you heard 2 really good presentations right before me in terms of what has been achieved through the REAP program and what's been achieved in the past through redevelopment. And many of you were around, I can see, when redevelopment was around. So I would like to, and I'll give you my working theory and you can respond to it. I think I'm partial to REAP. I helped create REAP, and I do not see it as strong as a solution as bringing back some kind of tax increment financing tool that would empower cities to do the thing on a city by city level. A small state program is not going to be as effective as 500 local programs. So let me ask if you agree with that. And finally,
I don't know if
is it okay if I call them if they ask a question, or I want to know?
I'll wait for the chair.
Did anybody have any questions before we go to comments?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm getting all the questions done.
So I have a quick question back.
Yeah.
Okay.
How large was REAP 1 and how large was REAP 2?
REAP 1 was $125 million, of which $110 million went out on formula to 20
The
councils of
110
government.
fine.
Okay.
And what's REAP 2?
REAP 2 is 600 million, 510 going out on formula to 18 MPOs. There were some
Okay, so we're given RENA numbers, and first of all, I think we need to frame what are we looking to accomplish, and it's low income housing. And that is whether it was, and by the way, if I go back to redevelopment agencies and I pull what they were actually economic social blight, not low income housing per se. Low income housing was a byproduct, and what happened in San Marcos was you used it to answer your low income housing, and you did it well enough ahead that you had the money until now to keep doing it. And what order of magnitude was the amount of money that you got from redevelopment?
So at its peak, we were taking in $62 million.
Say that again.
62
million.
Yeah.
Wow,
so-
you've stretched it then quite well to get that many units out of it.
Well, that was what we were getting. It was generating, and through, as we were having this conversation earlier, it was. You're right. We used it for affordable housing, but it built the infrastructure that helped support the future growth as well, which was really critical as well.
So if our goal, if the state's goal is to generate low income housing, there's a subsidy that has to go with that. And when SANDAG wrote our letter to HCD, it used a number of $700,000 per unit subsidy is required to take it to subsidize from a market rate down to a low income. Encinitas, I'll just take Encinitas, roughly 1,000 low income units. That's $700 million of subsidy required to fund that. REAP wouldn't even cover Encinitas, or would barely cover Encinitas if we got 100% of it. And that's over 8 years. So it's $100 million a year of subsidy is required to meet the state housing goals in the city of Encinitas. $100 million out of our $140 some million general fund. Yeah, not going to happen, right? Can't happen. Now let's compare and contrast, go back to RDAs, development agencies, and the money was an order of magnitude. It is in the realm, and it's also placing the housing where it's needed in the economically blighted areas. So it was a much better tool, and it put the local control back in the local hands. So, but the funding's gone there. So what we replaced it with was the arena, which is not working. If you go objectively look at the data, and are we generating low income housing? And the answer is no. And in fact, what we're doing is we're way overbuilding because of RENA. We're way overbuilding market rate because everybody wants to build luxury condos down at the beach. And I always ask the rhetorical question, how many more $1 million condos do I need to build to solve the affordability crisis? And the answer is none. I'm building 6 to 1. I'm building 6 market rate, or the market is building 6 market rate for every low income unit we generate. Of course, the poster child of this, and it's not just RENA law, it is also the density bonus law and any one of the 500 Housing Accountability Act starting in, before 2017, but really the tidal wave hit in 2017. The poster child is the Turquoise Project down in PB or wherever it is, 23 stories. And does anybody, I love telling people, do you know how many low income units are in the 235 units? 5 affordable.
Wow.
There are 5 moderate and 5 low income.
Wow.
And most of it is hotel and a bunch of market rate, like 75, 85 market rate, just absolutely ludicrous. So the laws being made, the Housing Accountability Act laws, are not generating the numbers, and we're not coming, very few, except maybe San Marcos, and through maybe National City through Section 8. Most municipalities are not meeting the RENA numbers, not even coming close. We're down in the 5% range. And it's failed. And it's really a question, in my mind, of funding. And that's why I thought this was such a great topic today. But REAP is not the answer, because you're funding the process, not the actual housing need, right? And the REAP funding was really just going to, and same if I talked about HAP funding too, it was really housing acceleration. It's again, process funding when the real need, the $700,000, just if you walk out of here with no other thing, $700,000 per subsidized unit, that money has to come from somewhere. Today, it's coming from the state usurping our housing zoning laws and letting builders build wherever they want, and they're building 6-to-1 market rate units. And as a result, we're building taller, bigger, and we're ruining our local control and our local community character. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my comment.
That's awesome.
Mayor Morrison?
Well, while we're making comments, I'll try to keep it quick. Arena is broken entirely. And, you're just talking about, National City with our deal might be able to meet the arena. No, we can't come close to arena.
Mr. Morrison, I ask you to stop. I realize we didn't take public comment because we're getting into comments. So if you'll be the first one when we go to our comment.
Okay.
Unless you had a question.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Can I just,
Okay,
I
yes.
did not I was inviting questions because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I actually have a few more minutes or a
okay.
couple more minutes to say. I didn't know the format.
I
so.
like the comments and we're getting involved. That's what we want to talk about, but I want to make sure I keep the process and I don't step on something.
Let me say I'll wrap up fast and then we can get into all the conversation. I want to say one thing about RENA and the language that we use about RENA. I'm very careful about it because local governments accommodate their housing need through the zoning and they're not responsible. So I'm always leery about the phrase when we say we're not meeting our RENA, because it's shorthand for saying the market isn't achieving, but the local agencies usually have met the RENA requirement to zone that, and so the local accountability is checked. I think being loose with those words is part of what's leading to the narrative that local governments are not doing enough in Sacramento. And local government does, we're all accountable in this saying, so I'm not saying there isn't any accountability at the local government level. I just think the narrative in Sacramento is locals aren't doing it. Obviously we didn't give it to them hard enough before. So I just want to say that. I also want to talk about what it would take to bring back redevelopment or tax increment financing. I think it may have been circulated. There's an article I co-authored in the Cal Matters that said maybe it's time to start bringing that back. And there is a bill, AB 2110 in the legislature this year that brings back some form of tax increment financing, although it's limited. And so let me just take a step back and say this about redevelopment. We've done redevelopment only two ways in California, really. We've done it totally on and totally off, right? And when it was totally on, it was up to the city to define where the blight was, which could be anywhere, and that was abused by cities. There was, there wasn't, if you were designing a new process today, you wouldn't create it like we had it before. But we're also the only state in the union not to have some kind of wholesale tax increment financing to fund affordable housing. And I know we're progressive and different than the rest of the country, but this is probably an issue we don't want to be that way. So if we were to, I want to ask the question, what's the middle ground if we bring it back? And I'm just going to throw some ideas out there that are worth consideration. It's going to require a lot of consensus and bring in our school partners who right now have no reason to get engaged in the process. But first of all, we would probably limit the locations that it was applicable to. We have a tricky eminent domain issue to address right now. 2110 allows assembly of land, but not through eminent domain. And I think curtailing that is a minimum of what we have to do, if not just agreeing that, because that's a volatile issue. We also have to think about ways to get our school and county partners engaged. And the way the old redevelopment worked is, you know, once it was created, the property taxes were frozen at that level, and the city got 100% of the increment through the redevelopment period. And I think the counties and schools and special districts had a fair point that particularly in the outer years of redevelopment, you know, year 15, 16, 20, they were starting to see impacts on their revenue, on their services that they had to provide. And so maybe there is a different type of revenue stream. And I don't know how the bond market works and all this stuff. So I'm just saying, I'm spitballing here. But maybe we can figure out ways to make sure that the schools are more whole in the outer years of the redevelopment period, but still take advantage of 100% of the increment in the early years when we need to build the infrastructure, the sewer pipes, or whatever it is. And then we definitely need to tie it to affordable housing, but I would not do it in a way that eliminated some of the economic development opportunity, because you are also charged with climate goals and reducing VMT. And I'm constantly remembered that also means thinking about how long people go from their house to their job, and pairing economic development and well-located economic development to create jobs, housing balance is important to your climate goals. So these are things that I'm willing, and I'm inviting anybody to have this conversation about how do we bring back a sensible tax increment finance system so that we can actually help local agencies develop the funding sources that they need to help meet the state's aggressive housing goals. Because we do have a housing crisis. It needs to be addressed. The legislature's figured out 500 ways to address it one way. And I think that we need to diversify their strategy base to actually address the problem. And that's where I'll invite some conversation.
I have one question.
Absolutely.
You mentioned AB 2110.
Yes.
Okay, that's a bill. It
That
hasn't been passed.
Right.
Okay, what's the likelihood it's going to be passed?
That's actually a really good question. I believe, and I'd have to check its status, and this is the time of year where they're moving. I know it's out of appropriations. It was on the floor. I'm not sure it's made it to the second house yet or not. Oh,
I also don't know the minute by minute status, but today would be the last day that it would have the opportunity to move out of its house of origin. So we can get you a fairly declarative answer in terms of the fate of that bill by the end of the day today.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
That was my only question.
Okay. That bill to me is very complicated, and
sounds like it.
And I think we're too eager to. It does allow counties to opt in, but in the same way as an EIFD, which is, I forget the infill is the, it winds up that you're dealing with the city's increment finance share, which I don't think you need to go through an EIFD to create your own increment, right? And then meet all the state requirements. You could probably, as a city, figure out a way to segregate your own funding in a way. So I think that it's a lot of process for an idea that doesn't really empower anything different.
Okay. Thank you.
2110 passed out of the assembly.
Oh, there we go.
All right, there we go. Okay.
Well done.
We want to power through this last little bit,
Yes,
and maybe we can
let's
open
do
it up for conversation. So I'll keep it very high level. My update is really sort of rather peripheral to the meat of the discussion, and I think the interest in covering a lot of the state and local topics that are being discussed. But I did want to flag it because it's a big development and a very relevant one to what we're talking about. So right now, Congress is on the verge of passing probably the most significant federal housing legislation that they've passed in more than 3 decades. I think 1990, George H.W. Bush may have signed in the law of the last package of this scope and size. It's very diverse in terms of its contents. It's a package of a lot of different members putting their sort of individual priorities together into one big legislative vehicle. But there is a lot of buy-in in both the House and the Senate, partly due to how the bill came together, but towards seeing this pass, there's also a lot of interest in sort of the affordability discussion, specifically around housing. There are actually a lot of really interesting little provisions and sort of future opportunities that could come out of this that will be relevant for SANDAG and for our jurisdictions. I will note first and foremost, just sort of as a high-level caveat, it's not a big new funding bill. It is a bill of process improvements and tweaks, new eligibilities and things that can sort of incentivize and sort of help deliver housing. There are a lot of tie-ins to local funds that already exist, and there are some new sort of grant programs and pilot projects programs that can sort of create new pathways for localities to receive funding. Lift up really quickly just a few of the higher level items of interest, and this is one that I think everyone will have some baseline interest in because it relates to the Community Development Block Grant Program, which I think you all know well and use in sort of housing adjacent pursuits. This bill would actually expand CDBG to allow funding of new affordable housing construction for the first time. So this is ground up construction as opposed to rehabilitation, which has historically been the limitation on that funding. So it's not an expansion of the pot necessarily, which I think is a big consideration, but it is a new eligibility that is very directly relevant to new housing production. There are a couple of grant programs that we're looking at really keenly. One is specifically for regional planning agencies. It's a competitive grant program for housing and transportation coordination. And then there is another innovation fund that rewards communities who have increased housing supply or who have passed pro-housing zoning sort of rules or regulations. There is a significant section related to streamlining federal environmental review for infill projects and for small developments, things that would be of interest and relevance to local jurisdictions. And then there are a couple of little things that I found interesting I wanted to flag just for their sort of innovation. One is a grant program that would support the development of pattern books, so helping smaller communities adopt pre-approved housing designs for small developments, duplexes, ADUs, the like. There is a set aside within the HOME program, which you all are probably also familiar with, one of the other sort of major federal housing resource programs that would provide some pilot funds to incentivize conversion of commercial to residential. And so that's another area that you hear of a lot of sort of interest, but not necessarily matching resources to do that type of work. I think I can leave it at that and just sort of note that, with the amount of support that this bill is kind of ping-ponged back and forth between the House and the Senate and DC, the White House has bought into the package that is currently sort of moving back and forth. The House just recently passed, I think the number was 396-13 was the vote to pass the package most recently last week. And it is now back with the Senate. We expect that this could actually pass, within the next several months. So, it could be quick. It could be delayed by a variety of little sort of trigger points that are a little controversial. But overall, I think the prospects are good that the bill's going to pass. So just wanted to flag some of those items for you.
Thank you very much. Did anybody have any questions on that? No? Okay. At this point, we'll turn it over to public comment.
Thank you, Chair. We have one in person and two online. First is Cesar Javier, followed by Blair Beekman online. This is item number 4.
Thank you, SANDAG. We welcome this program. This only meant an orchestration of the political efforts of our elected officials. I have to pinpoint exactly the favorable or the advantage of this program to homeless people. Homeless people, people who are sick and dying, or to be sheltered. And that shelter should provide clean air, clean water, clean food, clean and safety neighborhood as they transition to a healthy being. So he could go to work and getting ways to rent or own later on. We welcome this program because there is a single patent to produce that sheltering music like Beethoven. Thank you, SANDAG, for leading this housing element in urban planning. I see faces here, leadership in respective cities and counties. They have a reservoir of experiences. I think Ma'am Doni is agreeable with that. So why 6.8 million? Less or more just to plan? I think the marketing bright people here, politicians.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Blair Beekman online, followed by phone number 3731.
All right, thank you, Blair Beekman. Thanks for this item. Thanks to the words of the chair of the meeting. The normal procedure is that from presentation, a few clarifying questions can be asked by the board, and then public comment, and then regular discussion. That's the usual procedure, and the chair tried to follow that as much as possible. Thank you. I wanted to comment that an interesting item in, I was impressed that the board person's, explanations of what's going on in San Marcos right now. There seems to be an interest in really wanting to work towards affordable housing, truly affordable housing at this time. And I think that's the key clarifier. We're learning to move past the past 50 years of building affordable housing for people who have incomes, say, over $80,000 a year, and or $100,000 a year even, and call that affordable housing. And we have to really kind of be changing our mind frame that we can be creating housing for people under $80,000 a year. How do we do that? And what does that create? I've talked about mixed income ideas, that we can be better developing a wider array of what mixed income can mean for a local neighborhood and residential area. The concepts of middle income housing development, I think, is a subject, it's a great subject matter that we don't want to better talk about, and I wish we could, because it develops housing for both high income levels and low income levels. And it's trusting that middle income, building towards middle income would respect, people at that level will want to welcome people of lower income levels in the future. The expensive.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our last public comment is phone number 3731.
Hey there, CalCog Bill, you're talking to the public, so you need to define ROI as return on investment, of which CalCog and its increased taxes is definitely not. Isaac, San Marcos doesn't have a housing balance. They have an ugly stack and pack dumping ground called North City. I enjoyed Ron exposing the fraud within Section 8, because the entire housing crisis propaganda is also a fraud, because even with illegals being allowed in, San Diego County lost at least 16,000 residents. That's at least 16,000 empty homes. Can anyone really claim success when almost 1 million people leave California a year? Housing funding, aka government in the housing business, is one of the reasons California is in its long-term, self-imposed affordability crisis. The more out-of-touch career politicians push, the more unaffordable the housing gets. Taxpayer-funded subsidization of low income creates poverty within the middle class. The value capture tax scam falls flat into another delusional dimension. Is SANDAG expecting higher property taxes, yet more affordable housing? You can't have it both ways. In fact, California isn't going to have it either way. Who is the Strategic Growth Council and what have they actually accomplished and how much do they cost taxpayers a year? The REAP program is just a compliance tool and a fraud that has bankrupted the state. And through unrepresentative regional governance, so the public has no idea who's ruining their neighborhoods. No one's talking about banning project labor agreements to bring down construction costs, eliminating CEQA or VMT, lowering building regulations, lowering the cost of gasoline, not a single real solution from SANDAG. What is SANDAG's plan for character protection when all these ugly stacky packs block sunlight and look exactly the same? How about when the lower no-income units bring crime and require more resources? What is SANDAG's traffic mitigation plan for its increased density plan? Inefficient and unsafe transit? All NPOs, counties, and the state should prepare for major Potemkin growth and major population loss and what that looks like for the future architecturally and economically.
That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Okay. Where did Mayor Morrison go? Oh, darn. I wish he told us that. Okay. Does anybody else want to have more discussion? It was going very well and then we stopped. So did you finish all your comments, Mayor Ilse? Did anybody? Yes, thank you.
Well, I'm actually here representing MTS, but I'm going to talk about my community a little bit. And we do have two MTS trolley stations in our community, which of course affects our housing requirements in different ways. But we have the opposite problem of Encinitas. We have a hard time fulfilling the RENA numbers for the high end of housing. Most of our housing is right in the middle, but addressing low-income housing. Oh, and also our community actually met our RENA numbers in the last cycle. I think one of the few communities in the state that did so. But we also had redevelopment money at that time. And I've been a council member since 2014, so I missed out on that. But I was on the Planning Commission for 10 years before that. So I've seen what we accomplished as a city over the last 22 years compared to what we're trying to accomplish right now. And we are working right now, thanks to SANDAG, on a planning. We have a planning grant we're working very hard to get that done by November. So we are definitely planning for more housing, to go up in our very small community. But the thing is, we have a hard time selling to our community members more low-income housing because we have a lot. What I've seen happen, because I volunteer with seniors in our community, which now is kind of funny because I am a senior, but a lot of these folks are coming in not just from, as Mayor Morrison kind of alluded to, not just from other communities in San Diego, which I would be okay with. Fine, move to my community, a place where you can afford. But folks are coming in from Los Angeles, from New York, from Florida, and I'm not sure about the families, but these are low-income seniors, and because if you're looking for low-income housing and you're living in Minnesota and housing comes up for you in San Diego, as you said, where are you going to move to? So it's hard to sell low-income housing to my community because they're saying, yeah, but it's not helping the people in Lemon Grove. It's not even helping the people in East County find low-income housing. So, not only is it difficult now without redevelopment, so I've took copious notes on your comments about how we could maybe get some redevelopment money back. But how do we sell this to our low-income housing, to our community members, when we're not providing for the many? We are a low-income community, much like our demographics are very similar to National City. So yeah, that's kind of my dilemma that I face in the next few years that I might remain on my city council.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm representing East County, which is inland San Diego, but I'm from the city of Santee, and our where we are stuck right now is that our general plan is decades old. It hasn't been updated, and you know, SANDAG has helped with the HAP grant and getting that through, but honestly, we can't afford to update our general plan and to do any of the things that we want to do and need to do and create opportunity zones for, you know, mixed use housing and things like that. We just can't do it. We can't get there without an update to our general plan, and we can't afford to do it. We also have an ordinance that the voters passed in Santee that also has restrictions to tying us to the general plan as it is right now, which, like I said, it's decades and decades. It's so old. So the way things are happening are, you know, developers can do infill projects, but they don't look at that with the infrastructure around it. I happen to oversee the oldest area in Santee. So there's a lot of senior parks, meaning mobile home senior parks, and, you know, infill around that, and that now apartments, but no infrastructure really to support the network. Transportation wise. What we would really love in our region is more workforce housing. That's a big need in our senior housing. We've been building a lot of that. We have Lantern Crest, which is getting ready to do, they've done 4 stages of it. It's almost a community into itself, and they want to do a 5th. But this is what I hear all the time. We need workforce housing. And I think I don't know if that's the same thing in everyone's mind as affordable. It's definitely not low income housing, but even just, you know, mid-range housing is unaffordable right now for the workforce. And we do have a hospital out there. Obviously, we have law enforcement that can't afford. We have a lot of public safety employees that are looking for housing locally, and they just can't find it. So those are the concerns in my area. And, you know, I know staff is just really worried about funding to finish the general plan update.
Thank you for that. Did you have something else you want to add?
Yeah, I just had one comment I wanted to respond to, Bill, your comment about clarifying that meeting RENA was only zoning for capacity. That's the way it used to be. Jennifer, you were on Planning Commission 20-some years ago, so was I. And back then, I remember our planning director saying, oh, you only have to zone for the capacity. Nothing in the state says you have to build it. Well, the Housing Accountability Act in 2017 and some of the subsequent bills have changed that. They've armed the Attorney General with the ability to sue non-compliant cities. Builder's remedy. I mean, go up to Saratoga, talk to them about their 22 builders remedies projects. Palo Alto's got, I want to say 10 or more. Los Gatos has got in the teens, builders remedy. So the threats are real. We were forced under a credible threat, a letter from HCD to approve a project that we really think didn't meet our general plan. But we had no choice because the potential repercussion was a builder's remedy where they would get to build worse than what was in front of us. So I don't agree that the way RENA is today, RENA 20-some years ago, yeah, I agree. It was a suggestion, so to speak, a capacity issue. But now they put teeth, very strong teeth in the second part, and they are enforcing it. So I thought that needed to be clarified.
Thank you very much. Coronado has an interesting place to play. We are even though we're not an island, we have an isthmus. We are very, very small, and we're surrounded by the federal government. Most of the land in Coronado is owned by the federal government. It's not ours. And the zoning between what the state owns, the federal government owns, and the port owns, we can't develop very much of it. And the funny part is, everything that's been built was through our redevelopment money. And we built as much as we could. We still are. We are one of the few people that actually have now just used our general fund money to go out and buy land, because nothing can be, there's no development that will ever pencil out in Coronado that is not market rate. It just won't. The land is just too much. So we've used our general funds to buy land. It's going to take us a while to build on it because we took all the money to just buy the land to be able to put a couple of units on it. But one of the interesting things is we're an old city. So the infrastructure could not possibly handle the 1,000 units they told us we have to do in the last arena. It just won't. So we are also trying to upgrade our sewer systems, but it's a chicken and egg thing. And so I'm not sure how, any funding that could help with any of that would be great. We've been able to get a little bit from the Fed government to update one of our sewer facilities, but that's something we're not talking about. These are large numbers for a lot of the cities without infrastructure. So I'm just befuddled how we're supposed to try and do this. So it's just something I haven't heard anybody talk about. Where do you put that? I mean, we just raised our in lieu fee significantly. It was in the news. We are now quite high, but that's because this development won't stop. People apparently think we do want these luxury units all over town, and it'll be, we're going to start tracking it. We've had a couple of large scale condo units for insane amounts of money that aren't selling as fast as they used to. And so we'll see. If we can't even sell high-end ones in Coronado because the units aren't as big as people want for that kind of money, I'd want a little bigger too. We'll see what that does, because that's the other problem. The state solution that if you just do higher and more, you can get something affordable, that's not true. It hasn't been proven anywhere to be true. Coronado hasn't been affordable in 30 years. So the more high we go or the more dense we go, it's not working. So that's the problem. I'd like somebody in Sacramento to figure out what does work. And maybe some of the places where it was successful is an example to look at. I don't know, but we need to do something, because no matter what we do. Oh, I forgot to mention, part of our city is under the airport land use restrictions because we're in the runway of Naval Air Station North Island. So can't raise anything there. Can't even take homes and turn them into condos. We have some beautiful old homes that nobody wants to live in anymore. We can't convert those because that will densify an area that the Airport Land Use Commission says we can't add more people to. So the constraints, and let's talk about the Coastal Commission, won't let us do a bunch of things. So really, we have a postcard that we can actually zone to try and do anything. So I guess we're going to find out how bad the penalties are, because I don't know in the next cycle how we could possibly comply. So one of the things that we talked about, and this is for SANDAG as well as the state, we'd like to, when we're looking at the next arena round, should there be something in there that says, what are you trying to do? I mean, we've done everything in our budget we could do. We bought land. We have started building some more. We have increased our in lieu fee to get more money to build affordable housing. It's all going to build this affordable housing, hopefully when we can start building on the land we bought. So is there any thought about, and all the cities, whatever it is they're doing, should that somehow factor in? And we probably won't get a lot of credit because we won't get that many houses, but some of you do. Some of you have built quite a bit in this last cycle. So it's just something to think about, because this current system isn't, I don't see any success anywhere to point to. So, and for the people at CalCog, are there any cities in the coastal zones showing success under the current RENA principles? I'm just trying to figure out how.
I don't have that specific. It's the fact that there are difficulties in the coastal zone up and down the state have been noticed. And one trend that we have seen in state laws is in the last couple of years, we've started to see the legislators say, and this applies in the coastal zone too. So which means that the things like builder's remedy or by right apply in the coastal zone and take that away. But I'm not sure, given I'll the diversity of problems that you shared in that's going to be you have it tough.
Yeah, there's not
Yeah.
much we can do about it.
And
Oh.
and I'll just add, I think what we've seen in there, not just so that you prepare, what we've seen already with some small the seventh cycle RENA has started in entities like Mendocino Council of Governments and the Napa County, which the state distributes there. So there's an ACOG, and San Luis Obispo, is that the RENA number is also high. And because the law changed and now their definition of existing need, which is the amount of housing you have now that is short of what your existing need is before new population moves in, is the way they calculate overcrowding now has changed, and that's a number that allows them to go up. So despite having a really big number in the sixth cycle, and despite the fact that you will likely have a situation when you get your seventh cycle number that you'll have a lot of inventory that's unused, right? Because you're not, as a state, we're not keeping up with the 2.5 million pace that the governor says we need to. So you're going to have a lot of inventory, and then you're going to get another high RENA number. What will happen is you'll have to do more rezoning, and then the land or the previous inventory will switch under SB 35 to by right. So you're going to have a lot more by right. And she's on my board. Lisa Hebner has been a really good person at articulating this trickle down effect. So if you have questions, she can also answer your questions really well in this.
And to add on to what Bill said, not to be the bearer of bad news, we're hoping to bring an item sometime later this year to start talking about RENA. We also, because we were first in the last cycle, there were certain adjustment factors that didn't impact us. One being cost burden, which is gonna be,
I didn't know you had.
Yeah, we were not impacted by cost burden last time, and they've also added, now there's accounting for homelessness. So those are two big things that we've been kind of keeping our eye on with
Can
the
you
other.
explain cost burden?
So people who are spending more than 30% of their income on rent or, yeah. So that added a lot to the COGS in the last cycle. We just happened to be first and made it under the radar, but yeah.
And so the way they look at that is they say, how many more housing would you need to bring the supply to a point where the demand would bring to make it? It's not a precise thing, but I think what you also had, they also had vacancy rates dialed in. So you're actually, maybe I misspoke, entities like the Southern California Association of Governments that came after you, in the last cycle, their RENA number jumped from like 550,000 in the fifth cycle to 1.2 million in the sixth cycle because of these numbers, the way it factored. But that particular number, the overcrowding was a little bit discretionary for the region to make a recommendation. And the way the law has changed since then is to require HCD to use a 1 bedroom per person kind of calculation. So that will increase. Sorry to be the messenger.
Yeah, and just for perspective, with our fifth cycle, we only increased a little more than 10,000 units from fifth cycle to sixth cycle. Our RENA number, because we did come early in the process, we only increased a little over 10,000 units.
I have another comment that's interesting. And I know that City of San Diego has gotten a lot of publicity because a council member has talked about second and third homes. I've heard some discussion that HCD doesn't like the idea of all these vacant second and third homes and is going to possibly penalize us. So my question to the state is then what the hell can you do about it? I can't do anything in my city. I don't have the authority to stop, and they do. I mean, there are a lot of vacant homes in our city. At this point, RENA is kind of divorced from whether we actually have housing people can use in our cities. There's a home that I watched go up for years, and I happened to take the senior who was living next door to them to something, and I said, oh, it's nice to finally see that finished. She said, oh, no, it's been done for a couple of years, and nobody's ever lived in it. never lived in it. And there's not much we can do. So I think the state ought to be getting into the idea of figuring out, how do we deal with that? I mean, yes, a lot of foreign investors came in and bought land when there was no good place to put money during the last recession or COVID or whenever they did. But I don't know how cities, and we're accounting for that. And I agree about workforce housing. You know who can't afford to live in my city? Teachers. None of the teachers, none. So I don't know what to do about that. Never mind the workers that do everything else.
And then throw in short-term vacation rentals too, that having the same effect.
That's it. The vacation rental. Well, that's the other thing. It used to be in Coronado that a lot of people would leave for a month in the summer and rent it out, and they take that money to help pay for big expenses, maybe some tuition in college for a kid. Now everything is rented out a month at a time. Matter of fact, that's what I thought that big house that was empty was doing. They were just going to start renting it out. Apparently, no, they don't even need the rental money in it. It just sits there empty. So for our city, we have both problems. We have that we're going to have high arena numbers that we can't meet. But we have three problems. Second is, even the people that build these houses that have now 3 stories and townhouses or condos, they aren't at the max. So builders remedy all those at this point may not be as big a deal in a lot of places because they're not selling them. They are already under the density. So increasing density, maybe some builder will be dumb, but people want luxury. They don't want tiny. So at this point, unless there's some requirement that it be affordable, it's never going to be built at market. So it'll be a textbook to see how any of this ever works out, in at least in my city. But, I have one more comment.
I'd love to comment about being divorced from the numbers. I think that's entirely accurate. I'm a little confused why CalCog and why our at the state level, we're not having more self assessment, looking in the mirror and this project and this process. Median incomes often don't match, per some of this conversation. What you see, one of the results is median incomes don't match median salaries. And we're trying to build cities where the land value doesn't get taken into account, so that we can't actually do that, right? We can't build a 5-story building in a coastal zone and expect everyone to work in the Starbucks or the grocery store at the bottom and afford the rent. The land value is too high. The expense to build is too high. It completely ignores reality. And whether we're a municipality or a transit agency, we're all challenged in funding. And we want return on value, return on investment at the very least, and obviously quality of life for our residents. And it seems at the moment at the state level, we're just ignoring that. And what we need is the opportunity to work together and collaborate as a region for the best of our municipalities, as well as our agencies that work with us. And we need to work towards changing HCD from a hammer into a nail that helps all of us use our tools to build better and smarter projects that fit our communities. I heard you talk about community character. What does that even mean nowadays? I hear that thrown around everywhere. And to the caller's point, I like North City. I think you guys are doing a great job. It's a great asset to your San Marcos, your college. It's not San Marcos community character though, right? Let's be honest. That wasn't community character 10 years ago. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the community character changes, that happens. But this is just a term that gets thrown around so much. I think to all the point is, we want to get a result that shows or reflects in what the goal is. And we all want to spend our money wisely for our agencies and our communities. And right now we're not doing that. So we need a louder voice doing that. And that's what we need to hear agents like CalCog and our representatives saying at the state level, so we can all do this better. That's my comment.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Who wanted to comment? Oh, Phil. Yes, please.
I actually agree. And I think where it's kind of like you presented really well, like here's the big problem, and like if you come into Sacramento and just and say we're going to change HCD, and that's not going to be the successful argument today. I think your vision is like a 10-year vision, and to whittle it, my strategy is to say, well, we need to have some self-help tools so that we can start demonstrating excellence and performance at the local level and build the trust that way. So I'm looking for beachheads,
So what I hear when you say that is I hear everybody in this room saying that they already feel that way and they're looking for somebody else at the state level who has that voice because it takes 10 years to start talking about it now.
Which is why we did the op-ed, why I'm trying to do things in Sacramento. I got to get Cal Cities. There's a lot of different entities. We're trying to facilitate that conversation to get that momentum going. I literally think we're landing on a beachhead right here. Say in this naval community and trying to that's where we are. I do think one of the issues that we have, and we haven't really talked about, talking about, the sewer pipe capacity and the guts that you need to do to build a city. Like for each 7th story building or 12th story building, you need to have a fire escape plan that helps make that happen. And that it currently isn't in. We need to be bringing these anecdotes and these stories to Sacramento, which aren't happening. And, CalCog is there, but really who needs to be there are the cities and counties. Cal cities, Cal counties have to be. I mean, we're there, but they need to be ahead of us because they're the front line.
If I could just sort of tag onto that and give a little bit of a SANDAG specific sort of perspective on how we've approached that, very much in line with sort of what you're prescribing as a good next step in sort of aligning Sacramento's activities with sort of local realities. Over the past year, starting with correspondence that we sent that the board sent to our full state delegation, there's been a subsequent series of meetings with different representatives from different cities within the region, in district and in Sacramento, doing exactly that, sort of lifting up here the different on the ground realities that don't comport neatly with this policy or that policy or new legislation as it's coming out, trying to sort of just raise that local awareness. So that very much has been sort of the foot forward thinking that we've had in terms of an agency and how we make that sort of lift that voice up and in our engagement with state legislators. So
I will add one more that's unusual about Coronado. Our population is decreasing because it's too expensive to live there and because of all the empty houses. The people that do come for a month at a time don't bother filling out the census. So that probably is causing the numbers to go down as well. Although we're also affected by how many carriers are in port. That changes our number. So we've not had every year we have to protest every once in a while, whether they're counting or what they're counting as our population. But I'm wondering, has anybody talked about that? Because I don't know, we may be unique because of the carrier issue, but I'm curious, it's too expensive to live. Our population is going down, which then suggests this really isn't working.
I would add to that. Oh, sorry, just a real quick add on top of that. That piggybacks with our decrease in school attendance.
Yes, exactly.
Can you buy an old cruise ship and turn it into low-income housing? I'm just thinking, when you said aircraft carrier, I thought, hey, maybe use the aircraft carrier.
Oh, thank you. It's just a thought because I have to look at it. And school numbers, to be honest, is one of the bigger indicators. And the only thing that saves us is all the Navy families. If the family wants to make a large percentage of their income, and some of the Navy folks do, so their kids can go to a great school district and walk to school, that's who's keeping our school numbers up. If it becomes too expensive for even them to try and do it, our schools really are going to have a problem. Thank you. This has been great. Did anybody on the panel want to have any more say in this?
I feel like I've talked enough.
I can certainly chime in too, just reiterating around infrastructure. It's one of our biggest challenges. When I'm talking about how San Marcos has grown, and you're absolutely right, community character and lots of terminology gets thrown out around housing and development, and we know things will change. But one of the things we know has to change is infrastructure. And to your point about Coronado, we similarly see those things even in a city that is developed over the last 30 years, like San Marcos. That infrastructure has to keep up. Funding housing is a great objective, but in a vacuum without all the support it can be really problematic, and make it so some of our communities cannot achieve. Even if you wanted to, you can't achieve. And so I think that's a really salient point about this, is that even for me, when I go back to redevelopment helped us with that. Many of our roads got built out using redevelopment funds. Many of our infrastructure items to be able to carry this capacity that we're currently at was built with that. And that was kind of fundamental to cities. And I know I have a lot of staff, and you probably all have staffs at your cities that are working fervently because, there's 1,000 strings pulling on them in 1,000 different ways. And one day one of those just gets yanked on and they have to shift, SB 79 being a really interesting one that has come up. So we've poured resources into that and trying to figure out, but we don't control that. So for me, when I look into community character, is that wasn't something we could say anything about. That is something that is being told to us. So we're trying to just figure out how to handle it. And one of the things that we really enjoyed was being able to have autonomy and have trust through funding that we could then apply. And that was certainly something that was really beneficial that we had through RDA, that allowed us to go through with our own abilities to deliver on things. So I think that's very much in line with Bill's theory he kind of presented at the beginning, and I share that. I think that's very true. And I think what's happened is we've thrown a lot of ideas at the wall. We haven't settled out. It appears that we all kind of have the sense that it's not quite right here. And it's a struggle, because I will say from a staff perspective, it's immensely difficult to navigate this and to come to you as our leaders and say, here's the right thing to do, because I'll be honest, sometimes it takes us forever and a day to figure out how to navigate this. Including how to fund things and how to deliver on policy objectives that you have. So it's a really interesting problem. I find it fascinating. It's an incredibly difficult puzzle to unravel.
I'll make one other comment that may be unique to us. Our R4 is along our one business street. We have one street where I say business. At this point, we've become hotel and restaurants. That's pretty much what we do. But we still have a few of the businesses that we all love. Our small independently owned bookstore. We have some hardware stores. We have a few individual non-chain retail stores. But under the current housing rules, if builder's remedy is invoked, or there's a couple other things that evoke them, if they decide that the ferry really is a transit hub that's going to make us have to have increased housing, they will all be converted to housing, because that's what the developers want to build at market rates. There won't be any affordability about it. Then they've taken away at least some of the economic engine. So for us, it's kind of funny, because we have nowhere, all the people that want to park, thanks to the Coastal Commission, we can't have paid parking in a lot of places. So there's nowhere for all these new people that live that don't have to have parking, depending on what they're getting. So that's the other side that I don't know anybody's talking about. If you can't have even one car required parking, what happens? We are confined, like I said, in a tiny postage stamp. There's nowhere for these cars to go, because people are going to bring cars. Despite what HCD and everybody says, there'll be cars. So we don't want to talk about that in Southern California, as we're trying here in San Diego to get people out of their cars, but they'll still own them. And the question is, where are they going to go? And we don't have enough money to buy land to make a parking lot. That's just not going to happen. So thank you so much. This has been helpful. Has this discussion done enough to inform SANDAG on anything they wanted to get out of our discussion? We keep talking about our problems. You've given us 4 ideas in the past. I don't know what else we can provide for you.
Yeah, thank you for today's discussion. I think it's helpful. Stacey and I, and I'm sure Ryan, have been taking notes, and we'll be coming back and giving updates as it relates to some of the legislation that they mentioned today and how that's, moving forward, or even with the funding split for the affordable housing sustainable communities and what we're able to do, and seeing that come forward through the governor's budget. I think some of the things that we'll maybe come back and talk either with you, Chair, or some of the committee, as we are preparing and seeing some of the other regions move forward with their RENA cycle, we want to start talking about that early, just so that we all have an understanding of what that might mean, because it is going to be very complicated, and it is going to be different, even more so than we thought. The 6th cycle was very different than how we did it from the 5th. This one is going to be even more different and difficult for us to try and get our understanding of all of the complexities that we anticipate to come when we start that in a few years. And then, certainly we're open to, we heard some discussion around some of the ideas for things that you want to continue to see from an advocacy perspective. So we'll continue to advocate and have those conversations, as Ryan said. And if there are additional things you'd like to share with us, please let us know. If things are working really well across your cities, we would love to take that information and be able to share it broadly through our TA program. But thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comments at this time, this concludes today's meeting. Thank you to the production team and Michael for the meeting support. The next Regional Planning Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, July 31st, 2026 at 9 a.m. Thank you all.